approvals, denials, and pended requests. So we've talked so far about how CSBs open requests and how providers complete them once they're open. Now let's talk a little bit about what the CSB does with that and how ODS is involved in the process. If we return to the CSB view, CSB will log in. We're going to select our location at the CSB. We're going to return to the IDOLS system by clicking IDOLS. And of course we know we're logged in because we can identify our username, our current role, and our location. Now returning to the left-hand column, we're going to go down and we're going to look at awaiting CSB approval. This is where the request is returned from the provider. Initially it was awaiting provider completion. Now that it's completed, it's in the awaiting CSB approval view. Selecting this link will open any requests that are currently waiting for approval. You can filter by the Case Manager Support Coordinator by selecting the drop-down box, and again you can use your links at the top of the columns. Here are the 2 requests that we've completed so far in this training. Let's look first at the Congregate Residential Support, which was the first request we completed. Click Select. Okay, that opens the request from the provider. At this point, the CSB submitter, Case Manager Support Coordinator, or approving role at the CSB can scroll through and see the provider's entries. Everything we typed, from the description to the hours, the units, the justification for overnight support is listed. Go on down, you notice the attachment is not in this section now, it is actually at the bottom. So if we go below the approval section, so here's the ongoing communication as well as any attachments from the provider. That can be opened by clicking the small icon here, and then you have the option to open it directly or to save it to your hard drive. For now, we'll just cancel out. Now at the bottom of the screen, there are several links to choose from. You can, if everything looks good, you can approve the service request as is, and that will send it on to ODS. You can choose to save it and come back to it later. You can cancel out. You can reject the request. That would send it back to the provider for additional changes. You'd want to put a note in here in the box just above to be able to explain what changes need to happen. Or you can delete the request. Deleting the request just eliminates it from the system as if it didn't exist. For example, if a provider forgot to put information into a form, and say you notice that there's some blank spaces, you could go in and say, I noticed that there's missing information. I'm aware of a discussion we had in relation to this issue. Please update the missing information within the request and resubmit. So we're not yet going to approve it. What we're going to do is reject it, and that will send it back to the provider. The system will process it. And you notice here at the bottom, the email system has sent the notice to the provider that they need to address the changes, and also you've been given confirmation. The email messages are tailored to the specific situation. Here we see rejected within the notice. Now let's take a look at day support. You notice the residential is gone from the list. It's been removed from the queue and gone back to the provider. So we open day support, scroll through and look at all the information. Make sure the start and end dates are correct. The assessment information is provided. Support units are appropriate and match the blocks. If travel's being used, those hours are included. We go down to the bottom. Notice the approvals, awaiting CSB approval. Now here are the messages as well as the additional attachment provided by day support. Clicking on the small icon, you have the option to open it or to save it to your hard drive. We're going to cancel out. So if everything looks good, you may choose to put in a note that will be seen by ODS. Approved as submitted. Sent to ODS. And if we go down and select Approve Request, it goes from the CSB to Central Office for review and approval. System processes the request. And then we're given confirmation that the service record's been submitted successfully. Clicking on Continue take you back to the listing, and you'll notice both residential and day support are now gone. Both requests have left the queue. Let's take a look again at some of the links under service records. Rejected by CSB would be the link you would go to locate that congregate residential request. Here it is at the top. So we know that we can still go back and look at this until the provider completes it, and this would be the location you would come to view it. You simply would select within that list. Awaiting ODS approval is the next link. So we know that we have sent the day support request on to ODS, and here it is listed at the top. So that one is on its way to Central Office of Developmental Services. If we go down, the actions taken by ODS, there will be no email notifications, but ODS may choose to pend a request, deny a request, or approve a request. We'll talk a little bit about those as well. This last link, in Active Records, that's sort of a holding tank for history. So anything that's been canceled or deleted or ended or closed, it'll provide you a history of requests, so you can always go here and look and see what's been denied in the past or canceled or deleted. Okay, so we're going to talk about provider corrections. If we go back to all residences and log into IDOLS, notice we're logged in as a provider. Okay. And we're going to look at, if we want to look at awaiting ODS approval, we can see that the residential request, the day support request has gone through. If you look at pended, denied, rejected by the CSB. And because we did receive an email notice that one of the requests was rejected, we know that we would want to look there. If we look under awaiting CSB approval, see that both requests are gone, so they've both been acted on. One was approved, so day support shows up under awaiting ODS approval, so we know that that request has gone on to Central Office. But the other request needs to be located, and we did receive email notification that it had been rejected. So if we look under the rejected link, we'll find the request that needs additional action. Press select, and that will pull up the request so that the provider can make changes. Scroll through, you may identify right away what the issue is. You may not, and so you really need to rely on that support coordinator to put in a note at the bottom to tell you what needs correction. So if we go all the way to the bottom, we see here the request to add missing information listed within that history. So it tells the provider what to correct. The provider can go in and make those corrections. Once that's done, they can go in, enter a note to the provider, and to the CSB saying that they've made those corrections, and then approve service request. Once this is chosen, the system will process it and send it back to the CSB queue. Okay. Here's confirmation that the service record has been submitted successfully. If we go back and look at awaiting CSB approval again, there it is, just as it was the first time. But it's been moved from rejected and placed back in awaiting CSB approval, now that the changes have been made. You want to make sure and check periodically because there are no emails from central office generated by the system. If you have requests out, make sure you go in and you look on a regular basis to see what's been pended, what's been denied, and what's been approved. Things that have been approved will stay in the approved list as long as the service is active. And the provider also has an inactive record list, so you can always go back and check your history. Now here at the bottom, we'll go back, log back in as a CSB. I want to go back down to service records, look at awaiting CSB approval. And here's the congregate residential support that has been submitted a second time. So the corrections have been made. The CSB submitter support coordinator can open this link, scroll through, just review it, approve that those changes have been made and entered. Just confirm the corrections. Okay. If the corrections have been made, then you can approve it, and that will send it on to ODS. And there we have confirmation that it's been submitted successfully. Okay. So if we look under awaiting ODS approval, you'll see here congregate residential support. So we know that it's being looked at central office level right now. You can go in if you want and view the request by clicking select. It provides you a example of what was submitted to central office. So you can always view your final submission at any time, as well as the communication history. A few final considerations in relation to this part of the training include printing within IDOLS, which can simply be done by right-clicking on any screen and selecting Print from the drop-down menu. Also, in regards to start dates, if ever there is legitimate reason for an earlier date, the provider and the support coordinator should enter justification in the comments notes section of that request, along with the desired start date for ODS consideration. And then finally, providers will still get the DMAS letter with the approved service authorization information just as they have in the past. It's important that providers not begin services until they receive this letter, which confirms that the service has been added within the Medicaid system.